What's going on, everybody? Michael Silva here. Welcome to an episode of the Stock Market Brief Show. My stock charts platform isn't working right now. It kicked me off, and now I can't log back in. There's technical difficulties, so I'm going to be using TradingView. And there's only a few things that I want to talk about today anyway, and that's really about this volatility that could be coming into play. Earlier today, you probably noticed that the S&P 500 and various other stocks like Amazon, they were down severely for the day and all of a sudden closed at all-time highs. So massive swings in volatility. What I want to go over today is really the Bollinger Bands, how they've been contracting. We're going to be bringing in on-balance volume as an indicator as well to really help us determine where the market might go. And, there's some red flags, but there's also some very positive things developing in the market. So first off, let's just look at the S&P 500. We're looking at the SPY, closed at an all-time high. You can see that it was down to around 442 on the low of the day. What I like here is, one, a nice big volume day came in. Okay, we saw some volatility. What's interesting, though, about this volatility is if you just take a look at the VIX also was up on the day, slightly there too as well. So we had this big spike early on, hit the 20-day, and then we started flipping over. You can see here on the S&P 500 Bollinger Bands, they are all of a sudden now contracting, pulling in a little bit tighter. On balance volume does look good right here as it's breaking out to all-time highs. The volume looks good, and this move overall looks good. So this is a positive development for the S&P 500. There are some red flags taking place. Like, for example, if I were to look at AMZN, Amazon, just look how nasty of a candle this was. This was one big red candle on the day, and then all of a sudden the algos tripped, and bam, we close at high of the day. So this big hammer candle might get followed through to bring us up higher, which could very well benefit the Qs. It could benefit the SPY as well. Now, where's the red flags at? If I look up the IWM, this is very interesting to me. You can see the Bollinger Bands here are contracting very tightly. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow me there. But the last time that we saw bands contracted this tightly, and I did the math looking at the Bollinger Band width indicator, which I don't have on this platform at the moment, but that was right around this time in September, where we ended up pulling down to around a 10% correction. I believe that I can actually measure that price range. I don't remember how you can measure it from this tool. Yeah, maybe that is it. There you go. Yeah, 10 point. Yeah, just let's call it 10%. So my question here is, will volatility with this contraction with the Bollinger Bands, it'll lead to some sort of expansion here, probably in the near future. I could say it's as soon as a couple of days. Will it be to the upside or the downside? This doesn't forecast that. So don't get that confused. When they contract, it expands, but that can expand to the upside. It can also expand to the downside. If you do pay attention to a couple of things, this was an interesting trend break right here, and that was one of that I was keeping an eye on. It was forming somewhat of a bear flag, and we did break down through that. As you can see today, we tagged the lower Bollinger Band right below, right around there, and then we started bouncing up. Now, what I like to do is pair this with on-balance volume, and if you can look at the on-balance volume, it also looks like it's breaking down right here. So this is going to be, this to me looks like it's going to be breaking down. It doesn't look like it's going to be breaking out to the upside. We got to give it more time and see what comes from these Bollinger Bands, how tightly they're contracting. We do have some major moving averages right above us too. Like I believe it was the 50 and the 100. And then we also have a confluence with price action as well as the upper Bollinger Band. So there's a lot of resistance. It's been in this chop range for multiple months. If small caps continue to fall, or if they do break down to the downside, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the overall market, right? If we pull up an index like, for example, XRT, okay? XRT is a retail index, and this one also looked really weak on the day. The Bollinger Bands are tightly contracting here too as well. And, consumer spending makes up for 70% of the economy. If we start to see this start heading lower, it could be a leading indicator there's more downside to potentially come. Now, if I bring up the Qs, this is also interesting. The Qs finished just around an all-time high. We saw a nice big volume right here, and on-balance volume is at an all-time high right here. So that's breaking out. So that's a positive sign, signaling that, hey, we very well can get some follow-through on this. And, like we saw today, a big range candle can lead to, once again, more volatility, right? Think of this big range as drama, right? There's a lot of drama today. It went way down, it went way up. If I brought this into the 5-minute time frame and we could just expand this out, sell off right during the day, and then all of a sudden bam, right to the upside, breaking out, closing at pretty much the all-time high. A lot of volatility. Okay, and I think that we're going to be seeing more of that. Like I said, if you look at the daily time frame, what we were noticing was that the Bollinger Bands here are also starting to contract. And contraction can lead to expansion, and that could be in either direction, up or the downside. And on balance volume suggests that it can be to the upside. So what we need to see here is if we start breaking above 369, let's call it 370, that can start a potential squeeze, Bollinger Band squeeze to the upside. So let's be very mindful of that. You got to be mindful of potential head fakes too as well. Let me delete the smiley face. It's just overall very interesting price action. Now, another one that I've been wanting to monitor is XLE, and just look at how tight these bands are contracted to as well. So we have Bollinger Bands contracting, in various different sectors, as well as the main indices, and these contractions can lead to larger expansion. So you need to be very mindful that, hey, volatility is going to be probably picking up here very soon, and typically during this seasonality time, we see volatility rise, which can be poor for the indices. And the indices, they've really been being held up by a few big names, right? The FANG stocks. If I were to bring up, like I said, just Amazon, let's take a look at Facebook. Facebook also, Bollinger Bands are starting to contract right here, but we did see a nice big, burst in volume today too as well. Very interesting just price action overall, and we did break through this little tiny range here. So Facebook looks like it wants to go tag the top. Apple is another big one that we saw huge moves today. Apple, look at this move today. Holy moly. So it broke to the upside of the Bollinger Bands that were contracting. On balance volume it's not breaking out to these all-time highs, so that's a little bit of a concern. However, the price action looks good. The Bollinger Bands were contracting, now we're right at the upper range, so this could be a potential squeeze to the upside. We're going to have to monitor that one. But this is a huge player, right? It was forming a pennant pattern. We were watching this pennant pattern right here, and it broke out. And if we break out, it can lead higher. And if we wanted to measure that, an easy way to measure that, you can just say something like this, just the range of this triangle, and you could pull it up and bring it to around 156.03. But if you measure from a pole length, it could go even higher. So very interesting price action overall. Like I said, you need to be very careful in today's environment because of what we're starting to see with various sectors and the industries. Now, another thing that's interesting to me is if you just pull up XLP, the defensive names, right? We talked about this in the other video that I posted recently. Bollinger Bands were contracting, now we're squeezing to the upside here. On balance volume matches this move. We're not getting that much volume these last couple of days of trading, but it is moving quite significantly to the upside as we're breaking through some key levels of resistance. And then another one is XLU, that's utilities. Also been seeing a big monster move here in utilities as it's breaking out to all-time highs. On balance volume matches that too as well. So we're seeing a lot of positive moves in the defensive areas, and we're seeing the indices also breaking out to all-time highs. There's a lot going on right now. This is an extremely important time to be very, very mindful and be very, very careful in this environment, because volatility, like we saw today, it can throw you off very quickly. You did not want to short today if you around 8 or 10 o'clock or whatever it was, because you would have got your face ripped off on that just algo type driven price action, right? If I bring up the SPY on the 15-minute time frame, you can see what I mean here. Like, look at this move, like insane move. Like, holy moly. So it came down, right? All this scare, bam, and it's just an algo, just bam, 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 all green candles basically, except for 4 of them, and it closed at pretty much its all-time high for the day. So insane price action overall. Now keep in mind, on these 15-minute time frames, they're getting a little bit overextended, a little bit overbought. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more volatility step into play tomorrow. Like I said, be careful out there. I'll have my stock charts application back up probably on tomorrow's market brief or on Wednesday, and I'll get a little bit more in depth in various indicators. That's all I got for you on today's episode, everybody. See you later.